Hi, I'm Rick Dancer. Welcome to Get Real with Rick Dancer. And this is a special edition. What we're doing is don't have a sponsor. This is just something I'm doing because for years people have said, how do I get to know their candidate? And I'll tell you what not to do. Don't go to the voters pamphlet because the voters pamphlet is just a bunch of paid for bullshit. And it shouldn't even be there. And you and I pay for it. And then all these people go in there, they pay for it, but they have to pay for ads about everything. So when it comes to issues or anything like that, do your own homework and don't trust the pamphlet because those are people paid to say what they're saying there. That's my 2 cents. I'm doing 3 candidate interviews. These are people, we need balance in Oregon. And I'm sticking my neck out there and going, you know what? We need some ballsy people running for office who will come in and say, we're not doing it this way anymore. And one of those ballsy people is Timothy Sean Sutherland. How you doing, man?
I'm doing very well. Thanks for having me on, Rick. Thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome. And as you can tell, Timothy is from probably South Eugene or somewhere in the South. You're actually from Kentucky, aren't you?
That's right, Lexington, Kentucky.
So how long have you been here in Oregon and what have you seen since you've been here?
Well, I've been here about a dozen years full time. And of course, I've seen beautiful beaches and beautiful mountains and crazy politics. And it seems like the political climate's getting even crazier.
Is
So
that what made you stand up? I mean, what takes you from? Well, first, let me have you do this. Tell people what you do for a living because you have a very interesting background, which would make you, I think, a pretty effective legislator.
well, I'm in the senior insurance market, so I help people with Medicare and related products. I have roughly 500 or 600 clients, maybe. Most of them are local here, but I do work in other states, but most of them are right here. So I speak to a lot of people on the course of a week, a lot of people, and most of them have true life experience, not college kids, not millennials, but people, veterans, and people with real life experience.
So, what are you hearing out there from these people? I know you're running for House District 13, which is we'll mention your opponent one time, Nancy Nathanson. She's been there for a long time, and Oregon has a supermajority and one ideology that we tend to follow. And you're trying to bring a different perspective to the table.
Well, yeah, Rick, I didn't even know who Nancy Nathanson was 6 months ago, to be honest with you. Although I've lived in her district for almost a dozen years, and what politicized me was just the schools, the constant distancing. They shut our kids out of school, and then they let them back in, and then and I was telling you right before you started to record, I was doing a little research on just how recent this was that they were put, and this was in May 28th of 2021, barely a year ago, while every other state had their kids back in school, out of masks, and moving on with their lives. Our people had them in hula hoops, 6 feet away, outside, wearing masks during recess. That's what they were spending our time and money on. Um, it's as my son was at home, him and his friends hung out at my house quite a bit because I was shut down due to my work with elderly people. I couldn't migrate around, my usual places. So most of my work was done by phone, and so the kids got to hang out to my house. I knew the COVID for the kids was not a big deal, that they should have been in school all
So,
along.
and now hasn't there been reports out that I know people don't pay attention to information that doesn't line up with their thinking, but there have been reports out that said this was probably one of the most damaging things we could have done. And now Oregon is 38th in the country in terms of crappy education.
Well, the one that I was been quoting is 42, but I'll live with, if you say
Well, I don't know.
38, I'll
Maybe you
say
got a newer
38.
statistic. That's
Um,
still awfully close to 50, isn't it?
It's still awfully close to 50. And look, my opponent's been in there for 16 years, and we've never been out of the bottom third. She's never had a plan to help the kids. And I was just at a meeting, Northeast neighborhood meeting, and they had the new 4J superintendent up there that stood up and started saying critical race theory was not in our schools. And then they piped Nancy in. They piped my opponent in right behind him, and she's on Zoom in a cloud and starts talking about that they're going to reduce testing for our kids because that must be the problem, is that we're testing them too much. And then she came on with her new initiative, which is putting cameras in the forests. Well, look, Rick, they've got menstrual products in the boys' rooms, in the bathrooms, in the schools. They've got cameras in the forests. Why don't we just put cameras in the classroom? That way we figure out what our kids are being taught. Let's put some metal detectors up at the front doors. How about some resource officers? I saw Kate Brown trying to throw $3 million at for student safety, but none of that's going to go for real safety for the kids. It's not going to go to metal detectors and resource officers. It's going to go to foolishness. I'm just so fed up. The schools are tremendously unsafe.
How do you feel about school choice?
Well, school choice, obviously the money ought to follow the kids. And as soon as the money starts following the kids, they'll start teaching the kids the right material. 100% for school choice. I don't know how you can make that happen here in Oregon. It'd be a tough chore. It would be a tough chore here, I think, but I'm for it.
So, what do you do when you're talking to people? What is their number one concern? What are you hearing from them that is the top concern for people in your district?
Well, the ones that I talk to from a work perspective is they're getting crushed by inflation. About 30% of my book of business is probably people both on Medicare and Medicaid, and they are getting hurt badly, just very badly. They can't get enough Medicare benefits and Medicaid benefits and food stamps to keep them going. So inflation has them very scared. The people with grandparents, they don't like the education system. Everybody in this state, including the police officers, realize that ballot measure 110 has got to go. It's leaving drug addicts in our streets. It decriminalizes the drugs. We give them free health care. We give them sanctuary status. Look, what do we expect to happen to our streets if this is the policies we're setting? Of course, that's what we're going to get.
So, in a dozen years, how have you seen Eugene change from when you first came?
Yeah, it's been a dramatic change, to be honest with you. But now look, it may not have been changed that much. It may be just me paying attention now. So it may have been more gradual than I think it has been. Because like I say, I haven't been paying attention. I've been being a soldier. I've been doing my job, raising my son, trying to stay out of trouble, enjoying the duck games.
What makes a guy like you then, if you and all of a sudden now you throw your head on a chopping block out there, and why? What's different?
That's a good question. In the first place, me and God are a majority. Nothing they can say can possibly hurt me in any way. And I got tremendously upset being relegated to 3-minute Zoom school board meetings. And it's terrible the way that what they've done to the Pledge of Allegiance in the schools. I was hounding the principal up at my son's school. He's not going there now, but his old school, and he doesn't even bother to get out of his chair to recite the Pledge of Allegiance to his students. And he doesn't do it first thing on Monday. He does it seated just like me and you, casuals can be, and just reads it about 5 minutes into the Monday morning announcements. It's pathetic. Our children have such poor leadership. And look, it's not at the schools. It's in the city level, in the politicians, in the state level. We got a Nancy problem here. It's not countrywide. We got one right here. I want to spend a minute to you because she is nothing but a corporate shill. I can't find any evidence that she's even been in a school in her district since 2013. Not a picture, not a photo, not a blurb. All right. That in itself is pathetic. But as you go through and you start to see, she's raised over $70,000 in donation money. Oregon Realtors Department, Nike, Pfizer, AT&T, Eli Lilly, Bank of America. It's a murderer's row of people donating $70,000 to her campaign. I have no idea what you could possibly spend.
So how much have you raised?
I think somewhere around 5, but I'm not exactly sure. Every time we spend $3, put a sign up, they yank it out of a yard. So look, we have everything we need to win. We have a lot of mad people. We've got enough to win.
So do you think, because that's been a predominantly um, blue district for a long, long time. What do you say to people to make a difference? What do you think?
I tell them we're going to take the menstrual products out of the boys' rooms in the schools, and we're going to put up metal detectors. 100% of the people are in favor of that. 100%.
Do you
People
think
are tired.
people are like maybe school districts are out of touch with what parents are thinking out there and maybe just push too far?
They Well, I'm pushed too far. I don't know how many others are, but I am. And the parents that I talk to, they're plenty mad too. Um, Look, it's you don't get to lie to us and can keep lying to us. If you want critical race theory in the schools, explain it to us and sell it to us. Don't slide it in the back door through your educators and your and that's not the right way to put something in there.
So you think that's
Um,
what's happening?
oh, of course it's happening. It's here. This is what they're doing.
So Timothy, what in terms of like with if like the first day, let's say you're elected and the first day you end up in Salem, what's your schedule? What are you going to do?
Well, ballot measure 110. I don't know what. Like I say, I'm not a political person, but ballot measure 110 simply has to go. We've got to get the drug addicts off the street. We have to empower our police. That has to happen right away. Oregon Department of Education is in terrible shape, and I don't even know whether it needs to be completely deconstructed and reconstructed, or whatever it is. And I don't even know what that process would look like. But it needs severe change. So
So
those are the two things that I would do right away.
so since you deal in Medicare and Medicaid, what in terms of healthcare in Oregon? What do you think? What's your position on that for Oregon?
If you're talking about universal health care for everybody, that's the silliest thing you can possibly imagine.
Why?
I ran into James Manning at one of these Northeast neighborhood meetings, and at least he appeared in person, and he was pushing the Medicaid for all, the health care for all. They have no idea how many people it includes, and they have no idea how much it will cost. They can't even make a good guess. And they have sanctuary statehood, sanctuary cities, Medicaid for all, drug, can do drugs. Of course, we're going to attract crappy people. That's why all the taxpayers are leaving.
So what do people what do you need from people at this time? Basically, are you knocking on doors and you're just talking to
We
people?
are. I'm knocking on doors, and I've got some pretty good skilled telephone people that are helping me out. And thanks to you and Lars Larson had me on the other day. We got a little traction there too. Um, so I get to debate my opponent on Monday, and I'm quite
This
thrilled with
coming,
that. My guess is
oh, are you really on the 10th?
Monday is yes. I'm sure that she'll show up by Zoom, but if I can show up by person, I will. And I know I'll be in a friendly environment. It won't be like interviewing with you, but I get to make a statement, and I'm going to get to read her donor list, and I'm going to get to read some things that I think she ought to be explaining.
Is that why you're doing? Is this for you like just frustration? I mean, not just. I mean, obviously
Yeah.
you're doing the job, but are you just? It's not. I mean, a lot of times these seats in Oregon, especially when a Democrat has held them for so long, there's a lot of times not even an opposition because they don't even try.
Well, look, she was running unopposed, and they asked me to run like 2 days before the cutoff, and I didn't think very long about it at all. I said, absolutely, I'll run because my voice simply wasn't being heard anywhere, not in the school board meetings, not when I go to the school. Um, hey, my voice is being heard now, and I appreciate you and Lars and everybody that's want to hear it. And I'm going to keep doing it.
See,
So
for me, Timothy, you know what it is for me? It's like, I know people get, I know how the haters come after people, but it's like, I, I see such a lack of conversation and dialogue going on right now. And, so someone like you comes up and it's like, why don't you just, we don't have to agree. I don't have to agree with everything you're saying, but you get to, from the beginning of my life, I think it was instilled in me. Um, People need to use their voice, and even especially if I disagree with it, and as a former journalist, it's like you cover both sides of the story. And I'm not inviting other people, like I'm not inviting Nancy on here. I guess if she wanted to come on, she could. But that's not my job anymore. I'm just trying to get, right now, there's this ideology that's just taken over Oregon. And I think people need to be challenged on, what do we believe? And does Timothy have some ideas to bring into this? Because right now, nobody else's voice gets heard. Rural Oregon is like a vacuum. They got nobody. I mean, there's people trying to talk for them and help them and get their voice out there, but the Willamette Valley just decides everything. And I think there's got to be some changes, and a super majority. All that does, and I don't think there should be a super majority of Republicans. I don't think there should be a super majority of Democrats, but just people like you stepping up. Like when you called, I thought, yeah, I'll just put this guy on and let him kind of give me his spiel. So what's the last thing you want people to know about your candidacy and why they should be voting for you?
Well, look, what have you got to lose? Really, what have you got to lose? If you want some sanity brought back into politics, then you got to make a change. Nancy Nathanson just keeps getting more powerful. She's on 7 different committees. She's raised $70,000. She doesn't visit the schools. She doesn't go over to the boulders. She doesn't visit Falconwood. She doesn't care about you. I care about you. I'm out amongst you. I'm working with you. I want to stay here. I want to make it better. So that's my 13-year-old son is my skin in the game. I want this to be a remarkable place when he's 18 years old and want to stay here.
All right. Timothy Sean Sutherland, running for House District number 13 as a Republican. Timothy, thank you for being here. And
thank you so much, Rick.
You're welcome. And we will talk to you soon.
Great. Thank you.
So again, whatever you do, listen to people, hear their side. You don't have to agree with them, but you can get a better side of what's going on out there. Remember, November 8th is the election. You need to get registered, and you need to participate. So the worst thing we can do is become apathetic and hopeless. And if any time in the last 20 years or maybe more for me, the year I leave, but me leaving was more than Oregon politics. This is about me and my wife. This is where we want to be. But what a great time in Oregon to see people stepping forward, speaking out, not worrying about being canceled by people, or by culture, or by having what might seem like unpopular opinions, because there's more and more people going, something's not right. And now we understand a supermajority, and we know that this is not Oregon. All right, that's it. Thank you. You can get a hold of Timothy. He'll let you know. And again, there is a debate on the 10th, and I'll let him, when we air this, he'll put that in the comments so you guys can kind of know where that's at. All right, thank you. I'll see you later. Oh, remember to join us Monday through Thursday.